G'day guys, it's Dom here from DB Blades. So today we're getting a little bit ridiculous. This is something that I don't think has ever been done before, to be perfectly honest. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen it before anywhere. And there's a good reason for it. This is 25mm thick titanium 6AL4V. That is absolutely ridiculous in the knife making capacity. This is ridiculous. I don't even know how I can put this into words. How unuseful this will be. This is not going to make a useful tool in any stretch of the imagination, but I don't care. For me, the idea is to sort of make a sculpture of a knife and to make something 100% original. Reason being is I've got the Sydney Knife Show coming up in a few weeks, and I'm a competitive bastard who wants to have something totally different to everybody else. This is definitely going to be it, because I will be incredibly surprised if somebody else has something this ridiculous at the show. And I don't know what it is. When I pick this up, I get like this evil grin on my face and I feel like a supervillain. It's going to be great if it works, which is the problem, because 25mm thick titanium is going to be a pain in the ass on all of my tools and equipment, especially since most of it is very cheap stuff. Now, the first step for me, anyway, is I've got to make sure that I build it to the shape I want, and the way I usually do that is with a paper template. Now, I'm going to say this is not going to be tutorial, so I'm not going to cover what I do in very great detail. This is more just going to be, I don't know, a recollection or a video about how the knife was made for my own personal amusement, I guess. So I'm not going to explain how I do things, and don't copy me, because I'm probably going to do something very stupid in putting this together. So, now that we're on, my plan here is I'm probably going to come in here with a bandsaw, at least try to anyway, and chop off a big chunk up here. And maybe here. Now, I don't know how that's going to work, so we're going to try that next. Okay, so we're already off to a great start. I managed to put the template on backwards. Not a big deal, just put it on the other side, and this time it should line up perfectly, and it should help us cut. Now, we're going to try this in the bandsaw this time, and don't ask me what the model name for the bandsaw is, I don't remember. Besides, you don't want this one anyway, because the person who designed this must have hated his own life, because the extraction technique, or the technique to switch out the blades, is really badly designed. And it makes you yell and swear, and it is not great. Anyway, my plan of attack, you know, again, just go at this head on. Now, this is going to kill this bandsaw blade, guaranteed. But the question is, how much material can I get through before it dies? Now, I'm going to set this back all the way, and I'm going to try and take this cut as slowly as possible. So, try a bit of lubrication. I've never used this stuff before, so we'll see how it goes. If that doesn't work, I have some other oil and we'll try that, but this should be better. So, let's try it. We plugged in. Yes. Cutting. I'm being very careful to feed this as slowly as possible, because the worst thing I can do is to overstress this bandsaw blade. I'm physically slowing this down by hand, because if I was just to let this go, this would actually be cutting faster, but I don't want it to be taking such big cuts. I want this to be going really, really slow. I'm going to go re-grease this blade, and I'm probably going to cut it there. I don't like that sound. I think the bearings aren't very happy, or something's going on. So we're still cutting through this. I've probably cut this video a few times at this point, because I've been here for about, 15 minutes. But we're getting through it. It's cutting nicely. The blade's still cutting semi-straight. And yeah, I've had to stop a couple times to get these chips away, because those chips catch fire if you're not careful. And we are almost through. Now, this is going to be a long video, I can tell already. But, hell, this is going to take a while to not make, so suffer through it. That should be good. And we are almost through. Come on. There we go. That there is victory. Now this is a fresh bandsaw blade, so that probably helped us quite a bit, but as you can see there, whoops, we got through this, no problem. Cut's a little on the piss, but we're through. That's great news. We're going to try that again. We're going to try and push our luck. And I'm going to cut this video here because you do not need to see all of this, because it is going to take a very long time. So that result was totally unexpected. I fully expected this bandsaw blade to crap out in the first cut, but we got through it. The bandsaw is making some funny noises, but it's alright. It's still working fine. And I think, now that I see how well it's cutting, I'm going to try something a little different. I might drill a bunch of holes down here, and then try cutting down into them with a bandsaw. Now normally if this was a normal thickness, I just grind this out, but this is going to take a very long time to sand, so we're just going to cut this, I reckon, and try our very best to cut as much material as we can with a bandsaw. So, let's see how that works. And also, the cut quality is actually fairly good. It's not perfect, but the slant is reasonable. And it is, you know, through, so I might do something with this, don't know. And these are just cool as hell, because that is ridiculous. I did not expect this to cut through. Alright, let's try the next thing. So this is the last hole, I reckon. Through. I reckon that's the last hole there. Alright, so I've probably said this already, but the plan is, what I've done here, I've chain drilled. I've gone ahead and chain drilled a whole bunch of holes through here. And I'm going to use the bandsaw to come in here, here, and try and cut out as much of this as I can. So what I've essentially done is I've given the bandsaw a much easier time of cutting. And if the bandsaw doesn't work, I'll use an angle grinder, and if that doesn't work, I've got a hacksaw. So I'll get through this somehow. Okay, so we're back to the bandsaw again, and this is where I really want to start being careful, because this is not what it's made for at all. Now in a perfect world, I'd have a very good vertical bandsaw, one of the big heavy built ones for metal, but I don't. So this is going to have to do. I'm going to have to figure out how to cut with it. If it was on. So what that's done there is it's saved me a lot of time. Yeah, I've changed my mind. I don't really want to go down through the side. I'm just going to come down and just take out a whole bunch and just break these chunks out by hand. Now that I think about it, it might actually be better that it's this thick for the bandsaw, because the little stuff, it really rips at the teeth when you're cutting the thinner materials. But I reckon because it's so thick, the teeth are actually getting a good chance to bite and spreading out the pressure a bit. Which is not what I would have expected, but hey, I don't know everything. And if I haven't mentioned it already, a huge thank you to Zach for the titanium. I think I have. He gave it to me. He bought it a year ago and couldn't do anything with it, so I'm going to see what happens with this. There we go. That's the last one. So I'm going to go try and smash these out. So we're here at the vise, and my plan is to break these out. Will it work? Probably not. But we'll see. Probably should put my safety glasses on for this. No, that's not working. I don't think it's going to work. So, what can I do here? We've cut through it all the way. So this is the part where I'm going to cut the camera off because this is going to get kind of dangerous. It's not breaking out the way I wanted it to, so I'm going to do something stupid, so you're not going to see that. So there we go. After about, 2 hours of work, we have managed to cut out the very, very rough profile. So I've still got to sand this down, get the shape in, get everything even, flat. A lot of work still to go, but we're getting somewhere. Okay, so this next part, I'm going to sound a little muffled. I've got a respirator on. And the idea is, I'm going to take the sander and just sand all this titanium down to the paper. Now this part here, and this part here is going to take me quite a while. So I'm just going to, charge head on in. And it'll come off eventually, it'll just take a really long time. And I'm going to be using this hollow grinding wheel. Mainly because it helps with the... What's the word? It helps because it's got a smaller area, a smaller surface area, so it cuts a little faster. Afterwards I go through with a flat flattened. Anyway. Now, because I'm doing this, I have to be very, very careful that I don't start a fire. Because as you can see, it'll give you some serious fuss. So after much sanding and yelling and fighting, I've got this thing roughed out. I've taken a 50 grit belt, or at least 4 or 5 50 grit belts, judging by the ones on the floor over there, to rough out the outside shape. All these outside corners and everything have been rounded over and smoothed out. Next step, I'll have to do a 120 on these flat bevels as well, just to, clean it up a little bit. But here I am, and I'm going to be taking the grinder in the horizontal position, and I'll be just sanding the internal radius here, just to clean it up a little bit. And after that, of course, I go to a 120 as well and clean up this internal chamfer here, not chamfer, contour here. Running out of words. So it's going well. It's taking a lot longer than I would have liked, but we're making progress. So let's try this then. When titanium gets hot, it sort of lets off this gas, and the whole room stinks of it right now. So I'm going to open a window in a bit. Anyway, let's get grinding. Now the reason you're looking at my messy workbench is because I am going to start applying Dicam. And this stuff is engineering dye. Dicam's the brand, I think. Anyway. So I was originally thinking I was going to contour the handles completely first, but now that I look at it, I reckon I'm going to grind the bevels in for the main cutting edge. Reason being, it's a little bit more, it should be a little easier this way, and in here I don't really need a flat surface, so hopefully this way around makes my life easier. I also ground this top part here, mostly off camera. I just really had to concentrate, so I didn't really want to have to mess around with the camera when I was doing that. And this blue stuff here, it's just, it helps me see my scribe lines so I don't screw things up. And the thing about this stuff is that it stains the crap out of your hands. There's a reason I have Smurf fingers, and this is it. And it also stinks. Anyway, I think we're going to have some problems roughing it out on the hollow grinding wheel, especially, but just because it's just so much contact with the belt at once. But we'll see. Might have to try some things to get it to work. Anyway, give it a second to dry. So I think we're going to go sort of center. I'm not really fussed if it's dead center or not, because I scribe from both sides, so it doesn't really matter that much. So there, now I know my center, and I think I'm going to take the grind up to about here at first, but I'll see how it goes. I might take it higher, I might take it lower, depends how I feel. And there we go. Give it a second to dry properly and we'll start grinding. I was running low on my 50 grit belts, and just as I ran out, I got my fresh batch in. I had to put in a big bulk order for these Blaze belts. I don't usually use these, I prefer the Hermes belts, because these are more expensive, and the Hermes belts are pretty much just as good. Not quite, but they're not, but these are double the price, so I don't know, I can't really justify buying these most of the time, but I was desperate, and my supply didn't have any Hermes, so this is what I went with. So we'll see how this goes. See if it makes a huge difference on titanium. I'm betting not, but we'll see. And sorry about the rain in the background, guys. We're coming into winter right now in Australia, so it is freaking freezing cold in here. Let's see how we go. Ooh, okay, so it has been days and days since I started grinding this. I think it took me about maybe 4 or 5 hours to put a bevel on this knife, and I killed about 5 or 6 of these belts here. These are Blaze belts, and they're about 15 bucks a pop here in Australia. And I've also killed a few Hermes belts as well, so I'm well over 100 bucks in abrasives right now just on this project. So I hope I can sell this for a lot of money, otherwise I'm screwed. Anyway, so Thank God the bevel's done. It's not perfect, but I can finish that up by hand with hand sanding sticks. Next step, I got to start putting the contours in here. So for this next part, I'm going to come in here and just got to clean out the internal curve. And I'm going to be using a die grinder with a carbide burr bit at the end. I am going to put my face mask on, mainly because I don't want to have shards of titanium in my face. But, probably doesn't hurt anyway, to protect my lungs in this shop. So, the more observant among you will notice I'm applying Dicam in a slightly different manner this time. What I did before was I just put it on a rag, but after posting on a Facebook group about how I could do it better, a lot of guys recommended taking one of these markers here and just filling it up with Dicam. This is probably one of my favorite knife making tips I've ever gotten, because it lets me put down loads of the stuff, which is what I want. I want a nice thick coverage of the stuff in my work without getting it all over my hands, which is pretty much how I did it before. Which is one of the things that's so great about Facebook and all the knowledge that's on Facebook. Now here what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be scribing out how far I want to take everything. And I think for this bevel, I want to go really deep. And this just gives me a reference to work to. If I didn't miss and scratch it up right there. Which is not a good thing to do. Alright, that'll have to do. Give it a second to dry and I'll just grind it out. So for the next part, I'm going to come back in here with the die grind. You can see I've already done a little bit off camera. And the plan is just to grind it out. One of the great things about the work rests here is that you can use it as sort of an adjustable table when you're doing stuff like this. I'll do most of my handle scales clamped down on a bench where I can work on them with a die grinder or a Dremel this way. And it's sort of a comfortable height when I'm standing, and if I really need it, I can get one of these cheap lights here to illuminate my work. In this part, I'm going to put a pattern right in this flat area right here. It's going to be a random pattern. I don't want it to be anything structured like an AMSO. So just a random rock pattern. I'm going to put it in with a 2-inch wheel on the belt grinder and a 220 grit belt. I'm probably going to go through a few of these just because the 220 grit belt doesn't have a whole lot of life when you do this sort of stuff. And you need a really sharp belt. Otherwise it sort of just, it gives you this weird, it's not as sharp, it's not as crisp as it could be. Definitely wearing a respirator though. The abrasive on this is not good to breathe in, so I'm not going to say a whole lot with this respirator on. So you just have to watch and see what I do. So that's the rock pattern done on this side. You can see the crap is all over my hands. And I don't know, I might do it on the spine as well and on the insides. I haven't decided yet. You can see I sort of crept up with the pattern onto the flat right here. That's just to give it more of a three-dimensional shape around about the tops. Because I want this three-dimensional. The challenge is with a block, like a solid block without handles, is to get that three-dimensional look, which is why I've gone with the rock pattern. Anyway, now I've got to decide how if I'm gonna do any more patterning or not, or what else I want to do. Right now I'm just fixing up some of my mistakes in the grinder. Right here, you can see I struggled a little bit. There's a slight dip where I was struggling with the plunge. And the plunges themselves, they've got sort of a lumpy texture to them. They're even, but they're sort of lumpy. So I'm just going to take that up by hand on the contact wheel. Now, if you're smart, you'll make a sanding block with the same diameter or the same radius as this contact wheel. I didn't do that, so this is the next best thing. It works, it's just a little less convenient, but it'll get the job done. And this is just a 120 grit belt. I'll go up to about 400, I'm guessing. I'm not looking for a hand rub satin. I'm just trying to get these mistakes out and make sure there's no grind lines in there when I go to sandblast this. And this is a very long and very tedious process. This is going to take me about 2-3 hours, I'm guessing. Just because there's just a lot of material that needs to come out. Okay, so I've gone over it a few times and I've checked everything. Everything seems pretty even, and everything that isn't even right now or is rough right now I'm going to clean up post sandblasting. I took a really long time on this because I really wanted to get as much of the work lines or the grind lines out of the pattern as I could. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in the kiln. It's not... you can't heat treat titanium. It might marginally harden it, which would be nice, but I'm mainly just doing this for the color. So I just stuck a probe in and we're looking pretty good. We're about 450. I think we're going to go about to 600. I'm not really sure. I'll just keep on checking it, see when I kind of like the color. It will change once I quench it. So we'll see how it goes. So after sandblasting it, heat coloring it, and some other stuff, we've got this really nice dark purple, bluey kind of purple, not really purple, more like a blue bordering on purple kind of a deal. And he just saw me give it a quick satin finish on the belt. I decided to go with a belt finish satin instead of a hand rub because I really wanted to show the hollow grind on this one and that nice effect it has when it reflects light. So the trick here is just to be really consistent and take your time. It's going to be a little easier because I don't have a plunge to worry about, but I still got to take my time and be careful with this, because if I fuck up now, I don't really have a chance to do a do-over. There's not a lot of steel left in the grind, and if I heat this up again, I'm worried that I might warp the edge because it's just so thin compared to the rest of it. And I think we're about there. Just took the plastic off. It feels sharp. Not quite shaving, but close. About as close as you can get with titanium anyway. And there we go. So, I'm going to call this one done. It is probably my favorite knife I've ever made, and it probably will be for a very long time, just because it was so bloody difficult. It just took so long. I haven't put this much work or this much time into a build for a very long time. It took me about 6 to 10 hours just to get the rough shape cut out with a bandsaw and the grinder, and then hours on top of hours to do the bevels and all the texturing and all the polishing. It took me, I'm not exactly sure because I did this over a few weeks because this isn't really a client job, so I had to spread this out over weeks and weeks, but it did take a very long time. And so much money in abrasives, to the point where it's actually scary. I didn't even realize you could spend this much money in abrasives on a knife. But it's done, and that's the main thing, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. This knife was really touch and go quite a few times, especially grinding the bevel. I struggled with these plunges. This is definitely going to go down into my little baby book of knives I'm proud of finishing. Alright, so thank you for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm going to roll in some still photos because my videoing skills suck. Again, thank you for watching. Enjoy the photos.